Welcome to the Mental Health Boot Camp podcast.
Hey.
This is the podcast where three psychotherapists from Canada and one psychotherapist from the United States serve you cutting-edge mental health knowledge. I'm Dr. Ryan Howes, a clinical psychologist from Pasadena, California.
And I'm Dr. Brooke Lewis, a registered clinical counselor from the Greater Vancouver area.
And I'm Joanna Boyd, a psychotherapist living in Port Moody.
And I'm Chris Boyd, psychotherapist from Coquitlam.
Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
And welcome to the listeners, the worldwide listeners, except, well, hopefully, maybe this week we'll be welcoming a new listener from North Dakota. Let's go, North Dakota. Haven't quite got that listen yet.
If you notice a lot of ads coming up,
Yeah,
North Dakotans, then it's us.
yeah. I'm totally going to spend some money and target North Dakota for a little ad. We'll get them.
It's a wonderful state. It borders Canada. I mean, you'd think, come on, North Dakota. We believe in you. That if you didn't catch us last week, we were saying that that we have 49 of the 50 states, and North Dakota is our last holdout. So we're excited about completing the United States map. Canada's a little more challenging. There's 3 provinces that we haven't heard from yet, or they haven't heard from us yet. But they're not very highly populated, so it's going to be a little challenge, I think.
It is, yeah.
I think way less people in our territories than your states down there.
Yeah. Yes.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, still glad to be here. Glad to see you guys. Hope your December is going well.
Indeed. It seems to be, it was hard to believe it even became December. And now I feel like December is almost done. It's one of those, even though, what day is it today? Like the 8th or something.
8th.
So wild.
Usually I do feel that way. Usually I feel like December flies by. Not this year. And that's not a bad thing, because I really like to enjoy all the Christmassy things. So I'm still like, there's still a couple weeks. We're good.
Wow. Yeah, for me, it's been, for us, I guess, it's been super busy. So
Yeah.
the same kind of thing in my mind. It's almost finished, waiting for the finish line there. I have a few days off work and just rejuvenate a bit.
Sure.
But all good things, though. Not complaining. That's fun things happening. So
Maybe I was thinking we should make a couple of plugs here. If you're needing last minute, maybe it's not quite last minute yet, but if you're needing some Christmas ideas, Chris has a great book, children's book to sell.
Indeed.
I do.
Are you going to grab it?
It is the Ugly Christmas Sweater children's book. The Ugly Christmas Sweater Rebellion is called. And I wrote it a couple years ago. You can find it on Amazon for softcover, or we have a website where you can buy the hardcover. Nice little story about the start of the very first Ugly Christmas Sweater party and the phenomenon behind it. So it kind of parallels how the true story of how it all kind of got going, how these ugly Christmas sweaters became popular. So,
And also enhances the spirit of giving.
Yes.
And kindness and connection.
That's right. Those are the big 3.
And that's great, because I feel like a lot of children Christmas books, rightfully so, are talking about Santa and reindeer or presents or receiving presents. But this book is not about that.
Not
it's
this
about
book.
connecting to other people and being kind and giving back. And so it's more about the spirit of Christmas than what you're receiving. And I think it's a really important book.
Yeah, it's a great book. A little biased, of course, but I think it's actually pretty solid.
For those who aren't in the know, Chris, could you just say a little bit about your connection with Ugly Christmas Sweaters?
Yeah, so a friend Jordan and I started the very first Ugly Christmas Sweater party back in 2002. So it's actually our 20th anniversary of the
Ooh.
original Ugly Christmas Sweater party.
Yeah, there's been a lot of news interviews
Yeah, a
this
lot of
past 2 weeks.
Yeah. So of course, 20 plus years ago, Christmas sweaters were around. Very niche clothing item worn by mainly grandmothers and elementary school teachers and maybe the odd librarian. We decided to host a party and make the sweaters a main component of it. People seem to really get a kick out of it. So we coined the term ugly. We even trademarked Ugly Christmas Sweater. And this party that started in a house just kind of blew up on us. So within a few years, we were attracting crowds of 1,000 people down at a venue in downtown Vancouver called the Commodore Ballroom. So we're down there for about 12 or 13 years. So it's been, the party itself has been on a hiatus for a few years, mainly due to COVID, but we have a dash and we wrote this book as well. So everyone kind of traces this Ugly Christmas Sweater phenomenon back to us here in Vancouver.
It's awesome. You have
Yeah.
a dash, a 5K run, which is all for charity, right?
Yeah, there's always been a charitable component to the events. In retrospect, we should have tried to monetize this somehow, but no, we didn't. We just thought we'd focus on the giving component. But yeah, so this time of year, especially this year, lots of some media stuff. And one of our, so CBC is our kind of our national broadcasting company in Canada. So they have the CBC National, which is the news hour. I think it's every night at 10 p.m. I haven't actually watched it in a while, but so they came in to our place and did an interview.
Wow.
And Huffington Post.
Huffington Post and a few others. But last year, Fox News reached out.
Yeah.
They did a expose on the history of the Ugly Christmas Sweater and gave a nod to Jordan and I for creating the phenomenon there. So nice to be real news,
That's awesome.
Yeah, random, but
That is, and didn't you guys branch out to the States with some of the parties and 5Ks and stuff, or was that?
we
just
at one
steal
point
that
we were
from
in
you?
partnership with a promotion company down there.
Okay.
So they did a few down in the States. We did a couple up here, but since then we've been kind of doing our own thing. And then there was a partnership too with Ugly Christmas Sweater Day. So we had ours the third Friday. And then there was another one floating around, but they combined with ours too. So a few things like that, very, very informal.
Yes. So a few weeks ago, I was in a department store, and I turned the corner, and there's just racks and racks of ugly Christmas sweaters. Must have been 200 different varieties of ugly Christmas sweaters there. Certainly not put together by some loving old grandmother. It's kind of probably manufactured in some sweatshop somewhere. But so I had to take a picture of that just bulging rack of ugly Christmas sweaters, send it to Chris saying, I blame you for this.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you have an ugly Christmas sweater, my kid's school had an ugly Christmas sweater day last week. So all of these things go back to our very own Chris Boyd.
It's true.
Yeah, no, 20 years ago, Christmas sweaters got ugly and they gained a lot of popularity. So
It's true.
Yeah,
a lot of parties started to happen. And so kind of cool to be part of that. So
that's really cool.
random, very random.
Very random. Yes. Oh my gosh. I don't know if you could see these.
Oh, there it
Oh,
is.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm showing a picture of the ugly Christmas sweaters. Oh my gosh, there's so many of them. Anyway, I've got a book too. It's called the Mental Health Journal for Men. It doesn't really have much of a backstory to it. I didn't start the journaling phenomenon, but it's a book that's out there on Amazon. So
Good plug.
A very popular book out there.
Yeah.
Highly rated.
it's been nice. It's been nice to
Yeah.
see. You know what's been nice about this? I've heard from several like men's groups who are like, yeah, we're gonna get this group for our men's workshop. Just a couple weeks ago, I heard from a group. I sent this to you, Chris. A group in Canada, in a smaller town, where I think it's kind of an impoverished place, and there's a lot of drug use and stuff like up there. But these men there are trying to help their fellow men up there with their mental health issues, and he wrote to me and said, yeah, we're getting some of these books, and maybe you could talk to us in a workshop someday, which was really cool.
It's awesome.
That's
And
great.
and one of the coolest ones was about a year ago, someone wrote to me and said, hey, we're using this in our prison in
Whoa.
the United States. We're using this in our prison system to in one particular prison, and some of the men who are interested in mental health issues are kind of going through the workbook, and it's been really helpful. So I'm like, that's
That's
really
Oh, that's a really cool one.
We didn't, yeah, we didn't-
unexpected, you know? It's not what I thought.
super cool.
Yeah.
And I do think we should maybe head up to Saskatchewan, North Saskatchewan, and maybe
Yeah.
participate in a workshop up there. It'd be kind of fun.
I would love that. It'd be a lot of fun. That would be a lot of fun. So let us start our conversation tonight, because we get to do a book club, don't we?
True. Shall we hear the theme song?
Joe, are you ready to sing?
I'm ready, Ryan.
Vocal cords ready? Okay, take it away, Joe. Yay!
Well done.
My
Thanks,
goodness.
guys.
I'm
I think
telling you.
what strikes me about that is just the quality of the sound bite, you know,
Yeah.
and the enthusiasm there.
Your voice was in good form tonight, Joe.
Like a Christmas
practicing.
angel.
Yeah, a Christmas angel. Perfect. Well, our book tonight, Braiding Sweetgrass. Right?
Indeed. So it everyone read the book in entirety, which we haven't done in a while. So this is good. Some of us did anyone read it versus listening? Who listened? Who read?
I think
I
they
was
all-
sorry, Joe.
Oh, I think we all listened to it, unless Ryan read a book. But
No, I listened. Yeah.
yeah, we all listened.
And it was the author, right? It was the author who.
Yeah, I think so. I believe so.
I think it was.
Mary?
So
Yeah.
Yes.
So the in a nutshell, this book, the synopsis I can give is the book is more like a series of essays. So each chapter can be a standalone chapter. And each of them kind of goes through, the author tells a kind of in a storytelling manner, but there's wisdom or a lesson through that. But the storytelling isn't like once upon a time there was a bear, like a fictional, it's more narrating a moment in her life or something she witnessed or experienced and what lessons came from that.
Yeah.
And mostly about reciprocity between humans and Earth.
I just wanted to hear more from your example. You said once upon a time there was a bear. I'm like, tell me more. What did this bear do?
and it's the coming together of Indigenous wisdom and scientific knowledge. She talks about how she's been Indigenous herself, and then she's also a scientist. So she's coming upon from both those places when it comes to going through all these different chapters.
Yes. Yep, that's a great synopsis, Brooke. I think that lays it out. It's a long book.
It is.
There's a lot of parts, and it's not a textbook. It's not at least a lot of it is not a textbook. It's written poetically in many places. The prose is very well done. Although it's interesting for me as I was listening to it, I was noticing, I think maybe for me, when I'm reading something like that, I think I might need to actually hold it in my hand and read it. Listening to the kind of flowery prose was a little more challenging for me to stay focused. I think my brain doesn't adapt well when it comes to someone with wonderful adjectives and beautiful phrasings. Like my brain is like, get to the point. So just for me, I don't know. Did you guys have any challenges with that, or is that fine for you?
Listening to her specifically, I was okay. I think there's some stuff where as I would listening to any book, I'm like, wait a sec, I kind of stopped listening there. But I really enjoyed her narrating. I think there's a lot of passion in it, and it's kind of cool to hear her stories from her. But yeah, so I didn't find that. But
Yeah, I think in some of the more traditional cultures or indigenous cultures, the storytelling is such an important component to passing on wisdom. So that's where I kind of appreciated the audiobook, because there she was telling her stories to us, right? So,
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I was good with listening as well. We actually were painting our house when I was listening, or I was paint with a paintbrush, painting the house as I was listening. And it was a perfect pairing for that activity, because it's just repetitive motion, and it gave me enough to do something, but keep me still engaged in listening. I think if I was doing anything else, I might have been distracted by what I was doing.
yeah. And the siding of the house is cedar, which is very fitting.
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I think an interesting premise that she made right towards the beginning of the book was she's a professor. She teaches college students, and she was talking about how she asked her students who are in environmental science classes, she asked them, are there any ways in which humans benefit nature? And she asked, a raise of hands or something. And no one said there was any benefit that humans could give back to nature. That we're only damaging to nature, and we're only causing problems. And she said she kind of understands, these are environmental science students who are trying to do what they can to repair some damage and that sort of thing. But she's juxtaposing that with a lot of the wisdom from the indigenous cultures, saying, no, it's a symbiotic relationship, and there's, the land gives to us and we give to the land, and there can be this nice back and forth. And I think that's sort of a central theme to the book that she weaves through she braids through with her stories and
Nice.
And scientific facts.
Yeah, I agree. In one quote, she said, in some native languages, the term plants translates to those who take care of us. So again, that interconnectedness, right?
Yeah.
And, it was pretty inspiring. I enjoyed that, obviously,
Mhm.
as a therapist. And obviously, we know the research on the benefits of engaging in nature. And of course, there's a lot of reasons why that is, but they live it.
Mhm.
There's this natural or neutral respect.
Mhm.
And she gave so many great examples of that.
Mhm. Yeah, I do think as well, this book is very timely. I don't know if it's in your community right now too, Ryan, but there is a lot of, I find, young people with a lot of anxiety and dread about the future because of climate change.
Eco anxiety.
Yeah, eco anxiety, quite a bit. And so I thought that this book was able to address how, because there's such a sense of helplessness to it, what we can start doing and how to start re-engaging with earth and life, right? And like Mother Earth and plants and reciprocity. So yeah. I thought that
Yes.
was good.
Is that just
It's a very timely needed book on like waking up humans to say, you have to start looking at what you're doing.
Is that something you guys have heard in your own practices from clients? Some anxiety about the climate?
Yeah. Quite a bit for teenagers and persons in their early to mid 20s. A lot.
Yeah, it's feeling powerless. And what's the point anyway?
What's the point
The
in
world's kind of screwed up and
life or furthering career, or not wanting children because what's the point? Not wanting to pass this earth to them. Look at the state of the world. A lot of it.
Yeah, feeling betrayed by the older generations,
Yeah.
perhaps. And also, it's unfortunate, but very relevant that it's become a very political topic, right? Just the idea of climate action and whether it is created or the issues or concerns are created by humans, right?
Yeah.
So often unfortunately, there's a lot of dialogue out there.
Yes, I've certainly heard a lot about it as well, and it's interesting because I've heard from clients who have always struggled with some degree of anxiety, in the past few years, and oftentimes, someone has sort of a more chronic generalized anxiety, it just kind of it will land on something different. Maybe it's health anxiety for a while, and that kind of resolves, and then maybe it's relationship anxiety. And then now climate anxiety has become another landing place for some of those fears and worries. And it's a perfect match for anxiety because there's so much unknown, so much what if, so much, kind of apocalyptic doom and disaster, which depending who you listen to, there's a lot of people saying, absolutely, that's going to happen. Some people saying, well, probably, but we're not sure. So there's a lot of fertile soil for anxiety when it comes to the climate and the earth.
Yeah, and then of course, if you do encounter people who have differing views, then that can be very aggravating or frustrating or anxiety provoking too, because it's not something that everyone's rallying around. Perhaps I think isn't there a big international conference happening on climate change, and just trying to get people on board for that too. So yeah, very timely book.
Yeah,
no
I
doubt.
think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What were some takeaways that you guys had? Did you have some takeaways?
There's a couple, but one idea I liked was just her, like we talked about the reciprocity piece, but her also idea of animacy, like the idea of aliveness. A lot in our culture, Western culture, it's really just maybe humans and animals, but I really like that she gave it to like objects and other beings. So whether it's a mushroom to a pair of socks to, like there's this, and apparently we don't really have an equivalent in our English language to how you'd refer to these other beings, but they're all, it's not an it. She pretty much said was not, you don't refer to a tree as an it, or, like it's a being, it's another thing. So anyways, or not a thing,
Yeah.
contradicting myself. But I really like that.
About that, Joe, I'll try and find the news article, but I think it was out yesterday or today I saw it. There's a professor at UBC that's advocating to get Stanley Park, I think it was Stanley Park, renamed as a person. Like, obviously the name is Stanley Park, but like, so that it's not a park, but it's a person.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And tied to that exact concept.
Yeah.
And part of reconciliation. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I just think it's neat to think of other objects and beings as these things that we interact with. I think it increases our respect for them, and it's more of that treating them with kindness and just I just thought it was a really cool concept. So
seeing it as a whole, like this couch there's been a journey of it, right? How it was made and the materials and where those materials came from and all the hands that put that together, or machinery, and how were those machines built that made the couch, and to the delivery people and whatever. Like there's a life story to it. Yeah,
I like the interconnectedness as well, but also major sense of gratitude. I think maybe you're touching on that as well. Just the I think it's a big component. And there's one story, of course, it was a while ago that I listened to this book, but in my mind, I'm like, well, he's got to leave nature alone. But she talked a lot about reciprocity, right? So it's this give and take and finding that balance. So only taking half, for instance, right? And
honorable harvest. Yeah. But was it a grove? Or there's one area where, the indigenous,
like corn.
Was it corn?
Yeah.
They were harvesting a portion of it, and that area was actually thriving versus other areas that were not touched.
No, that was sweetgrass.
What was it, sweetgrass itself?
Oh, sorry, I thought it was corn. Yeah, there you go, sweetgrass.
Pretty sure it was sweetgrass, because it was somebody's
right.
research project.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the interactions and the partial harvesting of it is actually leading it to to it thriving, right?
Mhm.
Whereas the areas or meadows that were not touched weren't thriving as much as that.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. It's the idea of harmony, that there is a give and take there, and humans can thrive as well as nature can thrive as well.
Yeah. Joanna, do you have any funny stories about honorable harvest?
Oh, yeah, I actually took out my book and wrote down her little tidbits on how to have an honorable harvest. She's like, there's no actual guidelines, but if they or written guidelines, but if they were here. But so I guess my only experience with honorable harvest or harvesting is I've foraged for mushrooms before. I've been fortunate to do that. And the first time is like treasure hunting, like going for chanterelles in our local area here. It's a sought after mushroom, and I would like get all the chanterelles I could. I like had a bag full and I was so excited. And then listening to her honorable harvest, I was like, oh man. She talks about don't take the first one, always leave the first and the last, never take more than you need, you know, just take like just under half or half. And there's this anyways, I just thought, okay, I have some lessons to learn there, but I just looked forward to next time I go out to be a bit more mindful. I'm definitely grateful. I practice gratitude that way. I had a friend remind me of that years ago as I was aimlessly walking and picking leaves, and my friend was like, did you ask before you did that? And I was like, I just like, anyways, because I just without thinking was just picking leaves as we were going on a hike, and I didn't even think about I'm taking a piece of Mother Nature a little bit. So it helped me look at things differently years ago because of that. But I'm definitely going to think differently when I go for my next mushroom hunt. I think I'm going to practice some of those honorable guidelines, which were super cool. I just really liked that chapter a lot. So
I did too.
Yeah, it's a lot of, it speaks to the responsibility we have in nature. And I liked how they talked about the salmon hunt, and they let 4 days worth of salmon go upstream first before they even killed their first salmon. And, you know, because they want to make sure that they're allowing the future generations of salmon to be like, there's just a lot of cool stories she had about that. So anyway, I liked it.
Yeah, I really liked, speaking of the gratitude piece, the story where she went to the mall to get her notebook and pencil and trying to show gratitude for like the tree that would have made the pulp for the paper and for like the pencil, but and her journey of feeling so far removed from the actual tree itself because of the setting and how it's been so processed and just consumerism. And I actually really appreciated that little nugget as well. And just reminding ourselves all of the things that came from resources, right? And do you really need those things? Yeah.
That's great. I actually as I was listening to this, I was seeing some parallels with, I think, one of my favorite books from our book club, which was Together from Vivek Murthy, about the connectedness and the need for that connectedness. And she talks about that. There are a couple quotes. She's talking about this interesting research being done with pecan trees, where the pecan trees in a grove they don't necessarily they gather different resources and different nutrients from the soil for one reason or another. But when they're fruiting, when they're actually giving fruit, they synchronize somehow, and the resources are distributed around. There's like this odd collective process that's happening so that they all can thrive and they all can fruit at the same time. So one of the quotes here was, the trees act not as individuals, but somehow as a collective. Exactly how they do this, we don't know yet. But what we see is the power of unity. What happens to one happens to all. We can starve together or feast together. Which I thought is a really nice sentiment there.
Yes.
But
that was near the start of the book, right? She started off with a bang with that one.
Yeah. Well, I just thought that's a really, and again, we don't understand why that happens, but there are many of those sorts of stories throughout the book of like, hey, these plants are connected, and there's something whether it's through evolution or whatever, some way that they are somehow able to help each other, to help each other and to help not just within their species, but that's how the whole ecosystem works. And it's a really fascinating look at all of that.
Mhm.
For sure. Even what was it, the Three Sisters?
Oh, the Three Sisters garden. I read that part and I was like, we're gonna have a Three Sisters garden. Like that was all it took for me. But even that, the interplay, right? And the systems of planting the corn seeds first and letting them grow a couple inches and then planting the beans. And then the beans will use the corn as their trellis. And then planting the squash. But because the squash leaves are big, then it prevents like for weeds and things from growing. And then each of their root systems grow at different depths. So they're not having to compete for nutrients in the soil. And
But when grown that way, it thrives, right?
And they thrive.
Instead of separating them out and having rows of them, whatever it might be, and clusters of them. So
Yeah.
it's kind of intriguing, right? But it kind of speaks to, again, a huge premise of the book, and there's a lot of wisdom there.
Huge
from
amounts
a
of
lot
wisdom.
First Nations or indigenous cultures that maybe are not necessarily known or too widespread,
Yeah. And science now is just catching up to coming to the same conclusions that the wisdom has, if that makes any sense. There's these elders that let us know these lessons, and scientists, not always. I don't want to hate on scientists. I think that they're great, but now they're coming to a point where they've done so much research. They're like, oh, look at that. We came to the same conclusion of what we've always been told.
Yeah, they're understanding maybe the how
Or why,
the
or
why.
exactly.
Yeah.
Or confirming that is a truth.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I don't know if I mentioned this to you guys, but I went to it was kind of an art exhibit here not long ago where it was all really about the fact that the Native Americans in this area in California were in a habit of doing burns. They would burn the forest, a controlled burn. And they had been doing that for centuries until the other folks came in. And started saying, no, we don't like forest fires. You're burning down houses. Don't do these burns anymore. And as a result, the undergrowth has grown wildly. And whenever a fire starts, we try to put it out, and therefore the wildfires are stronger than ever, at least in this area. And I know you guys are just getting wildfires in the last several years because the more global warming issues there. But she talks about burns in this book as well, and about kind of the beauty of it, and about how a mountain burning, the ash and very poetically describing the gray of the ash and how it kind of is a blanket over everything, and then that is nutrients for the next crop, the next trees and everything to grow. So even that sort of wisdom that we actually completely lost, through regulations, said no, we're not going to burn anymore because fire is bad, which is actually really bad for the whole ecosystem and the forest system, and results in more forest fires.
Yeah, the same thing happened up in British Columbia as well.
Yeah.
Controlled burns were happening for a really long time. Then one day they said enough of that, and then so they say that's likely a factor as to why it's so bad or so awful now. Kind of yeah. But intriguing stuff. But lots of little tidbits in there.
So many.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any other takeaways or nuggets of information that you can think of?
I really enjoyed the essay, just like the visualization of it, of when she was trying to clean her pond.
Oh yeah.
I enjoyed listening to that chapter. I don't know if I had a super strong takeaway other than, ones that we already shared, because those were really reinforced, like gratitude, reciprocity, taking a look at your own impact and what are you doing, but like, yeah, just the way that she described what she was experiencing and what she found, and when she really looked, what she was seeing, and and her reflection of like, why am I doing this
Mhm.
as well? Like, what is the purpose of doing this, and how much do I have a right as a mother to do that? She was cleaning the pond so her daughters had somewhere to go swimming. And her right as a mother to do it for her children. Meanwhile, she's harming other mothers' children, because there would be like families of different bacteria or
Tadpoles or
yeah,
frogs or
tadpoles or frogs or different whatever, like whatever that translucenty net thing, you know, and there's all this life that she's pulling out, and she's like, what right do I have to interrupt their life so that we have somewhere to go swimming?
And also that she's having to, by like, in order to accomplish what she wants in that area, there needs to be some almost like sacrifice a little bit. She was really at odds.
Yes, yeah,
yeah.
but that
But,
one
yeah.
stood out to me.
But it's neat that she included that, because it
Yeah.
kind of talked about those mixed feelings and thoughts and contradictions and how she was trying to sift through it, right?
Yeah.
Which is a very valid point. I think people go through that all the time. You want to make a meaningful impact in this, in terms of nature, but often it's at a cost, right?
Yeah. I think one of my big takeaways, sadly, was how disconnected from nature I feel a lot of times.
Mm.
I mean, it's right outside, but she's describing a lot of things that are agricultural or natural, you know, untouched forests, that sort of thing. And even though I can see a lot of nature from where I am, I'm in the city, and it's suburban, and it's manufactured nature, you know, with a lawn and planted plants and that sort of thing, and just made me kind of sad about that.
Yeah. So no fresh strawberries kicking around.
No fresh strawberries.
Wild
Right.
Wild strawberries. Sorry, not problems.
Wild strawberries, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's interesting as well, because I don't know if, do you guys have a problem with coyotes, or have
Oh, yes.
yeah. Coyotes have been a much bigger issue here in the last few years. And there's actually a story in the news down here recently about a coyote who was in the middle of the day, kind of pulled down a 2-year-old child in the middle of the road, basically. So they're brazen, they're everywhere. And people are talking about, well, we just need to shoot them, or, you know, kill them, or just dump a bunch of food in the mountains and they'll go back up in the mountains. But it's a more complex issue than that. And I just think, as we're even as a city dweller, there are these deeper environmental issues that we need to be considering, regarding nature and regarding what impact we're having on the environment and on the animals.
For sure. It's funny. We were in Hawaii recently, and first off, it's a bunch of roosters and chickens running around, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, people, you know, newcomers to the island who sometimes bring certain creatures with them through their travels. So I think that for the longest time they had major mice and rat issues, and then now they have a whole bunch of cats on there, feral cats who are trying to take care of that. And then they introduced a mongoose, I think.
Yes, and then they had a mongoose
So a
problem.
mongoose to take care of, was it the mice maybe?
Maybe.
But now the mongoose have taken over and killing all these exotic birds. So, you know, they think that they can just introduce a species and balance everything out, but of course it creates other issues, right?
Sure.
But
Yeah. We're definitely not experts in this.
no, but
No.
yeah, there's reasons why this is happening, and just killing off a species is not going to solve it, and will probably create a ripple effect that we don't even understand or comprehend. I'm sure there's people out there who have a greater understanding of it, but
if there's one, since we're the Mental Health Boot Camp podcast, we're talking about a lot of important environmental issues and psychological issues. But if you were to choose a mental health takeaway from this, what would you take, do you think?
Oh, you can say something?
You can go.
Well, yeah, of course, we've talked about it lots over the course of the podcast, but just making the effort to be in nature. Call it like forest bathing. Doesn't mean bathe in the forest, very different, as we've clarified before. But just spending time immersed in nature is very beneficial. There's a huge reason why. We have a strong connection to nature over the span of humanity, and I think we've lost sight of that. We got distracted by other things, but it's super beneficial physically and mentally. Second thing is she had a great gratitude prayer that she did, and I actually sent it to some friends, and it was kind of neat. So they actually,
It's the Thanksgiving gratitude or something.
Thanksgiving, yeah.
Yeah, that whole chapter. It was phenomenal.
So it's a way to, they got kids involved and read it out at schools and stuff like that, but just kind of capturing all those aspects and elements of nature that we're grateful for. And I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, I was gonna say something similar, but with fewer words, to connect better with nature, right? Because I think that also provides us not just the natural regulation of the nervous system for us, but I think sometimes we get lost in things that they seem like they matter, but they don't really matter. And if we can simplify our lives down a bit and simplify what's going on, that might be helpful. Not in all circumstances, obviously, but I think this is something that we're naturally grounded or rooted by. And
Good one.
oh, I didn't
pun.
even realize it did that. That
Good
was
pun.
woohoo.
Rooted. I get it.
Yeah. But I think it's something that we have to get back to.
That's good.
I agree with what has been said. I
You
think
have to think of something that's not nature related, Joe.
I was actually.
Oh,
I think there's the reciprocity piece that was talked about, but also gifts. And I just think it's very kind of other people focused in the connection. So even when they talked about, she goes to a farmer's market and building those relationships and connecting with people, and there'd almost be this being given these things free of charge. And then she felt this need, well, I'm going to go give something back. Like there was this, it's just kind of like a mutual respect and connection. And I don't know. So I guess being other focused, like going outside yourself and connecting with people, connecting with nature, or just, I don't know, fostering different relationships.
Cool.
It's the little things, slowing down a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, great one.
Yeah. I think a takeaway for me is maybe not so explicit in the book, but just this idea of consequences, like things over time, over years, generations, millennia, the impact that something can make that trickles down into the lives and the environment. If we do something today that might seem like a good idea right now, or it might serve our needs right now, that could have dire consequences in the future. And I guess that in some ways that's a little anxiety provoking, like, I don't want to make a misstep, but it can also be a benefit too. If we do something good for another person or for nature at this point, it could have great benefits going forward in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great, a great part of the storytelling. I think that's handed down, this oral tradition of storytelling, where we're going to keep telling the same stories, and they are still meaningful today as they were hundreds, thousands of years ago. And I think it's really beneficial.
All of that, so important.
And made me think of something too. She just talked about her First Nations language, and how a lot of the stories, there's so many words that English doesn't adequately
Yeah.
explain,
We're
right?
so limited.
So we're limited when it comes to so many aspects of nature and the connection to nature and whatnot. But a lot of these old languages are not being taught anymore, or the kids are not learning it. So she's talking about how it's just the importance of continuing on those stories and those traditions and ultimately language, right?
Mhm.
How powerful that could be.
I liked an example I just thought about that I think might speak to the point I was making. Is she talked about camping as a kid, I believe, and I think it was always taught by her parent to leave things better than how you found them. So they'd always leave a stack of firewood for the next person and make sure it was covered to stay dry. And then they always go around and pick up every little thing, like even a match or anything, to leave it spick and span. So just that idea that leaving nature better than you found it, or leaving things better than you found it. And as well as that kind of leaving something for the next person. So
Yeah.
it's kind of just a neat, something so simple, but then someone arrives and they're going to see this, they're going to be like, that was so cool. And then they're going to pass it on. It's like these ripples of kind of doing good. I don't know.
For sure.
Mhm. Yeah, that was a really good one.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, let's get to the rating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we'll put your fingers down, and on 3 we'll raise our fingers.
What if you're a 0.5?
Half a finger.
Oh, okay.
I don't
Good
know.
idea.
1, 2, 3, go. Oh, look at that.
I'm an 8.5.
You're at 8.5.
I'm an
This is
8.
also an 8.5.
No, it was a 7.8.
Are you a 9, Brooke?
I'm an 8.
You're an 8. I'm also an 8.
We all held up our fingers in all different ways for that. I don't know, like
It was
interesting.
very
how-
confusing.
Yes, I know. We all just stared at each other in silence there. We're like, what is happening?
Computing. What? Who's yeah.
Okay, so I was 8.5, Ryan 8, Brooke 8, Chris 7.8.
Yeah.
Even though I'm pretty sure you're holding up 8 fingers there.
No, it was a couple halves.
Okay.
Pretty strong overall, we'd say.
I think so.
Is there anything that you'd want to improve that would make it a 10?
We're just waiting for Brooke to think. I have to admit, I think Ryan maybe alluded to this before we started, but for me, the stories were super engaging at first, and I don't know what it is. Maybe there's some other factors, but I had a hard time paying attention to maybe the second or the last third of the book, maybe.
Yeah.
Just it wasn't as engaging to me, or the stories weren't as intriguing, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. Just my own observation.
Yeah, I recognize that because I know I listened to the entire thing, and a couple things you guys said I don't remember listening to.
Yeah.
So I zoned out a couple times, I think.
I zoned out towards the end, though. The first part, I was like, oh man, like,
yeah,
more. This is great. Like I was hanging on every word.
It's also, again, it is a long book, and each chapter is its own standalone. So this could be something where it's more a book you have and you read one section at a time, or one a day, and then you think about it and let it process, because it's not a linear story.
Interesting that you say that, though, because I don't know if I'd say, I think there's value in all her things, all her chapters at the beginning, and even all her as a mother and some of the stories there. I think it really, I don't know if I'd get the same effect of what she's teaching if I just were to do a chapter here, a chapter there. Like each chapter has its own value and its own points and wisdom, but I also feel like to get an idea of her and just all the different she touches on goes back to different things.
Yeah.
So I guess I'd feel that it's important to read it as a whole, but
We don't have too many differing perspectives on this podcast. This is big. Honestly, she doesn't agree.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Controversy.
Woo.
Dun, dun, dun. But it's I don't know how to answer your question, Ryan, in terms of what I would do differently. I
Yeah.
definitely did like her stuff of her own. I think it's just what I don't know. I don't really have anything that I would improve. So I don't know if that's a 10, but I just feel like giving a 10 is such a big deal. I feel like I need to be like shouting to the, skies about this, but
Please.
I really enjoyed it. It was really inspiring. I think nature is a very important thing to me. And I think it was just so cool. Like I just want to learn about medicinal plants, and I want to just go out and just learn more about, or just do better myself as a human interacting with nature. I liked her earlier stuff. All those stories, I definitely enjoyed like Chris more at the beginning. And then when she goes away from when her kids have grown up and there's less stories about the kids and her motherhood, I liked those stories better, but it was all very interesting. So I liked it.
Yeah. And I'm with you guys. I don't know what we're with Joe on this one. Like, I don't know what I would change necessarily. So it's more like a feeling rating.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I agree. Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's like a personal preference. Like, I think I got a lot out of it. I enjoyed the writing. I enjoyed listening. I'll probably purchase the book itself and go back to it and reread it or visit it. It feels more like visiting the book than reading the book. In some ways. And like I really, really enjoyed it. I'm guessing it must be more like because I like exciting things. And this was like a calm storytelling, like intense. I think I gave one of the books like a 9, but it's like it was a trauma memoir.
Yeah.
Chaos, energy, gripping, suspenseful. But I think that's just a preference of style of book. But I thought this was so well written.
It's interesting what you're saying, Joe, because I kind of feel like this could have been 2 books. This could have been like a Malcolm Gladwell, like here's all the cool science and all these cool things, and here's what the 3 sisters look like, and all this kind of stuff that'd be like mind blowing. And then you could have another book that's like this really cool storytelling in this eloquent prose. But I do think the combination of the 2 works for the most part as well. So it's there's a lot here. It's a lot of material here.
Well, and I think it speaks to exactly her combination of Indigenous wisdom and scientific knowledge.
Yeah.
I agree.
Like she kind of
Nailed it.
she gives both.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
kind of like, yeah.
So after reading the book, we planted 3 trees in the front yard. No joke. There's now 3 trees planted in the front yard. And it motivated me.
Right on.
Yeah.
That's great. Very cool. We don't have a next book.
No, we'll have to share with listeners next time.
That's right.
Will be.
That's right.
Do we have time for another book? Because we're
Yeah.
going to slow things down after 100 episodes,
Yeah.
right?
We do.
Okay, good.
We do.
It's going to be the best book ever.
It will be the best. It will be a 10 across the board.
The Ugly Christmas Sweater Rebellion.
No, it's got to be the Men's Journal.
I don't think either of those are going to be 10s, but we'll get back to you on that.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Cool book club.
Neat.
Cool book.
Neato.
Braiding Sweetgrass. Okay. Then I guess that's it for us, you guys. Like and subscribe. Apple, Google, Podbean, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube. And go and enjoy nature. And we'll see you guys next time.
Toodles.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.